Hello, my friends. How are you today? I know you had a nice time. Today, we're going to be discussing asexual reproduction. We're comparing the two. Okay. Last time we did discuss the characteristics of living things. Look at all these characteristics, and then we went ahead to do a brief introduction of the sexual and asexual reproduction. And I promise you that when we come in our next class, we're going to go in details and discuss this. So you're welcome to this class. My name is Mr. Uche Vincent Samuel, and I'm taking you Biology 101. First of all, we're going to look at the learning objectives of this class. At the end of the lecture, the students should be able to define asexual and sexual reproduction. Mention types of asexual reproduction with examples. Mention types of sexual reproduction with examples. State the advantages and disadvantages of asexual and sexual reproduction. So let's go to the class proper. So we'll go into definition. What is asexual reproduction? We're going to keep it simple. Asexual reproduction involves only one parent that produces similar genetic offspring, like clones of the parents. While sexual reproduction involves two parents that contribute sex cell to produce genetically distinct individual different from the parents. So that is the definition. All right, so we're going to now look at um, the types of asexual reproduction. The first one is binary fission. What is binary fission? It's parents that split into two. First of all, the nuclei will split, and then the other cell organelle, usually in a unicellular organism, they will split and form two daughter cells. Okay, these are usually found in bacteria, found in amoeba, and then paramecium. The next type of asexual reproduction is budding. Budding is an outgrowth, an offshoot uh, of the parents, which eventually detaches and becomes a parent on its own. And this process continues until there are a lot of that. Um, Usually, you know that asexual reproduction is very fast. You see that in yeast. That's how our bread rises because of that budding effect. Hydra, we also see it in protozoans and many more. Fragmentation. In fragmentation, the parent is broken into split into several bits. Then each of those bits forms a distinct daughter cell. So examples are found in Spirogyra, earthworm, annelids, flatworms, platyhelminths, okay, the hydras, etc. In sporulation is another type of asexual reproduction. The parents form a sac-like structure that contains the spore, which we call the sporangium. When the spore ripes and bursts, the spores release into the air, okay, and then they will now settle on food or like what we call substrate that is convenient for them to grow, and you see they will germinate and become fresh individuals. We see that in fungi, we see it in the bacteria, fern, and we also find some in mosses and amoeba. Now we're going to look at the other aspects of our sexual reproduction. We have agamogenesis. This is any kind of reproduction that does not involve fertilization. For example, there are two types. We have the parthenogenesis, we have apomixis. So parthenogenesis, it talks about where females of some species produce eggs that develop into adult without any male fertilizing it. We see that in bees, we see that in wasps, stick insects, some other ants, rotifers, aphids, and some fishes. Okay. Then we also have apomixis, a form of reproduction in plants where seeds are developed into uh, uh, adults without any fertilization. They become, they become, they grow into seedlings without any seed. We see that in dandelions, we see that in blackberries, we see that in Kentucky bluegrass, citrus, and mango. We also have vegetative propagation. Okay, the production of new plants which does not involve disease. Any other parts of the plant that we can use to propagate, like the leaves, like the roots, like the stem of the plant. Okay, you know the way you cut cassava and you bury and it start germinating right away without any seed. We see that in cassava, hibiscus, potato. We see that in onions and carrots and a host of other plants. All right, so let's now go to sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, we have two types: conjugation and syngamy. Now, in conjugation, you see two individuals that temporarily fuse together, okay, exchanging genetic material between them and then separate and they begin to reproduce. We see this in bacteria, we see it in spirogyra, we can see it in protozoa and some fungi. Now, we can also see this in some hermaphrodites or the monoecious organisms. They have both the male and the female sexual parts, in the same organism. So we see that in mollusca, that's the snails. We see that in annelids, in the earthworms, and the many more. Now let's look at syngamy. In syngamy, this is where we have the proper sexual reproduction. This is a process of fertilization where two parents, both the male and the female, contribute haploid sex cells. Haploid means half of the number of chromosomes in the body of the organisms. Okay, to form a diploid zygote. Diploid is 2n complete chromosome. There are two examples. We have the external, we have the internal fertilization. So we're going to take them one after the other. Okay, so now external fertilization takes place outside the body, either of the parents' organism. So the gametes of the males are transported to the eggs through water, e.g., frog. The female lay their eggs on the water body. The male mounts on the female and produces their sperm, which now is carried by the water body the on the eggs, and they fertilize, and from there life begins. We also see that in bony fishes and toads. Okay. Now, we also have the second part of this, we call the internal fertilization. It takes place inside the body of the parents, particularly the female, and the zygote grows either in the body of the female, which is viviparity, or outside the body of the female, which is oviparity. That is laying of egg and then hatching the egg, or both, ovoviviparity. Okay. We see this in man, we see this in birds, we see this in lizards, platypus, and even marsupials and the rest of them. So we see all this. Well, having gone this far, we are now going to look into the advantages and disadvantages of sexual and asexual reproduction. So advantages of sexual reproduction includes asexual reproduction means it is fast. It is fast. Okay, and then the energy is energy efficient. It does not require mate. You don't need to run about doing any special thing. Just split and then continue life. Okay, then it's genetically identical species are reproduced, so it is good for cloning. All right, but it has, on the flip side, it has these demerits. It has low adaptability. If there's any change in the environment that will affect the species, all the species will perish. Okay, no genetic variation. That is a disadvantage. Okay, A harmful traits can be transferred from to the next generation. So if there is any disease of any kind in the cloning, it can continue to replicate, which is not too good. Now, let's look at sexual reproduction, the advantages and disadvantages. First of all, in the advantage side, we have that they have genetic variation because of the crossing over, or what we call gas matter in the process of the meiosis. You see, there's assortment of genes that helps variation to occur, and this helps to stabilize the survival of the organism. Okay, adaptability to changing environment. Because of this, newer individuals are formed with a more resilient traits. Okay, so they can survive in the environment. So it has evolutionary advantage because newer organisms are produced. So, but it has a disadvantage. It consumes energy. It takes a lot of time. It will require mates. Okay, to require mates, male and female, and the rest of them must look to find somebody that, or find a mate that will, start the life together. So, and then it is very slow. It is slow because it will take a period of gestation period before the organism is formed, before the egg hatches, and the rest of them, the incubation period, and the rest of them. So all these are kind of slow when you compare that with um, asexual reproduction. Thank you for being part of the lesson today. See you soon. Bye bye.